Joining me today on the Capitol Show, Jonathan Harounoff. He's a British-Iranian journalist who serves as Israel's international spokesperson to the United Nations. Jonathan is the CEO of a media consultancy named North Media. You are most welcome. Jonathan, I'm going to start about your book, Unveiled Centers the Women Life Freedom Movement in Iran. What was the most surprising or underreported insight you uncovered during your interviews and during your book preparations?
It's so great to be with you, Maria, and thank you for having me on your show. There were a lot of very eye-opening things that I discovered while spending the 3 or so years I spent writing and researching the book and speaking to Iranians inside Iran and in the diaspora. And some of them are fairly obvious, but some of them are less obvious. The fundamental one is that there's a very, very jarring gulf that exists between the people of Iran, the 92 million plus people of Iran, and the Islamic Republic of Iran,
Mm.
the 46-year-old regime. And they are not aligned in their outlook domestically over Iran's future and also externally over how the country, what kind of relationship it should be having with the United States, with the West, with Israel. So those kinds of differences in outlook were very eye-opening. And the other interesting takeaway was that there's been a fair amount of focus on what happened in the Woman Life Freedom uprising
Yeah.
that was sparked in 2022 with the killing of Mahsa Amini. But sometimes it gets framed as an isolated incident, that it just happened, isolated in Iran's recent history in September 2022, and it sparked this massive movement. All of that is true, but what's equally true is that it was very much a continuation of more than 4 decades of women supported by men fighting back in response to the Islamic Republic and the clerical leadership waging war on women. And you
Mhm.
saw from the very inception of the Islamic Republic in February 1979, there was war declared on women. There was an attempt to
Absolutely.
subjugate them, to um, reduce them to second-class status, and impose mandatory dress codes and other things.
Yeah, yeah,
And from the outset, women were fighting back, which was why on March 8th, International Women's Day, you saw in
yeah.
1979, that early in history, you saw women protesting in the streets, saying that this was not the revolution that they had been promised. And ever since then, you've seen a wave after wave of uprising, of protest in various incarnations where women and men are fighting back for a freer and more prosperous and more open Iran.
Yeah, my question is, how do you assess the prospect of for meaningful political change in Iran following the movement of like Washington tomorrow is hosting a big parade for Iran change regime. So how do you see external actors doing like USA, Saudi Arabia, and many countries who support? What is their role exactly? Do they support must change regime or what?
I think the key here is to support the people of Iran
Mm.
and not in their quest for freedom. We've seen wave after wave, time and time again, the people of Iran rise up, and
Mhm.
they've had limited success because the Islamic Republic is very brutal in the way it represses and arrests and disappears and executes Iranians. We've seen some international support in the past couple of years.
Mm.
Some movements by the UN, the Security Council, the Commission on the Status of Women to take steps to address the threat of the Islamic Republic, but it's
Mm.
been very limited. So if you're asking me what Western governments and international institutions should be doing, it should be to look at what kind of relationship they have with the Islamic Republic, whether they're assisting them in their repression of the Iranian people, and how best they can support the people of Iran so that they can bring about a brighter future. Because any kind of real change that happens inside Iran will be brought about by the people of Iran. But that's not to say that
From the
the
inside.
world
Yeah.
shouldn't be helping either, and that's not by way of boots on the ground, but there are other ways to assist as well.
Type. Is there any intention for Israel to change the regime in Iran? You serving as Israel's international spokesperson to the UN places you in a complex position. How do you balance journalistic background with an official communication role? And what is the intention of Israel to do with Iran, the current regime?
I don't necessarily see it as a complex situation that I'm in. I've been Israel's international spokesperson for about a year and a half, and
Mhm.
I've been a British person of Persian descent with Iranian grandparents my entire life. So I've had a very intimate connection to the country, to its future, hoping that once again we see a sort of rapprochement between the people of Iran and the people of Israel. I've been very focused on highlighting the fact that Israel is never waging war on the people of Iran and that they have this affinity, that they've both suffered tremendously at the hands of the Islamic Republic, and also that before 1979 there was a tremendous amount of allyship and alliance and prosperity and cooperation that existed that sort of gets lost in the Islamic Republic's history. Um, so goal Israel's goal in the 12-day war was not to bring about regime change, and since then it's not to bring about regime change. That's down to the people of Iran, but Israel supports the people of Iran in their quest for freedom. And with respect to the Islamic Republic, um, any steps that Israel has taken were done so in order to mitigate any existential immediate threat that the Islamic Republic was posing to Israel. And that's why it launched Operation Rising Lion. That's why it targeted military commanders, those nuclear facilities. And that's also why the United States followed suit, because they also recognize that
Yeah.
the Islamic Republic poses a threat, not just to Israel, not just to the United States, but to much of the free world.
Mhm. Now, Iraq is influenced by the Islamic regime in Iran. From your vantage point, how big of a threat is the Iranian regime's influence in that country? And what should Iraqi opposition, we had elections a few days ago, what the leaders should do, especially that the US is now concentrating on Trump administration to focus on disarming the militia in Iraq. So, what is your point of view on this matter?
Well, the Islamic Republic's tentacles have existed inside Iraq for quite a while, as well as in other parts of the Middle East. And I think there's a growing recognition
Mm.
that if there are, if countries want their people to prosper and they want to live in a society that is open and that is mutually beneficial, then it's in their interest to sort of not be associated with the Islamic Republic's nefarious agenda for the Middle East, one that's centered on conflict and chaos, and to focus more on the more aspirational peace building, bridge building agenda that the 20-point peace plan by President Trump, his administration, and what the Abraham Accords promises. Those are things that, like, I think benefit everyone and create a much more stable, free, and better Middle East. So,
Mhm.
if you're asking about what any opposition leader should be doing, they should be looking at themselves in the mirror and asking themselves what kind of future they want for themselves, for their people, and who they want to align with. And
Yeah, that's interesting. How did you describe the meeting between President Trump and Ahmad al-Shar'a, the new leader? I mean, the new president of Syria, where Israel is standing in this relationship? You're the spokesperson for the UN ambassador. So, how do you see this? Is still Syria now a threat to Israel? What Israel wants from Syria, especially with the latest incidents in al-Suwaida?
ultimately, when it comes to Syria, when it comes to any country close to Israel's border, is Israel takes its national security extremely seriously.
Mhm.
And of course, we've seen recent steps by the new Syrian government. They're saying things that sound great, but ultimately it's more about judging them by their actions as opposed to their words. So the meeting with President Trump and other senior officials is encouraging, but ultimately it's down to what actually happens on the ground. And we've seen some, in 2025 alone, we've seen a number of very concerning attacks on vulnerable communities and minorities, people communities like the Druze community, especially, who have, Israel has a very close connection to many of them, many Druze communities inside Israel as well. So it's incumbent on, not just to say the right things, but also to follow suit with action when it comes to Syria and when it comes to any country as well. That they, it's of course it's positive if they're saying that they want peace and that they're disavowing any kind of problematic past they may have had, but that has to be followed by tangible action that demonstrates that as well.
Mhm. Now we are waiting for Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, to come to Washington, D.C., meet with President Trump. And when last week they announced there is a surprise, countries are gonna be joining the Abraham Accord. It's look like it's Azerbaijan, yeah. So Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan? I don't.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. So what do you expect from Saudi Arabia during this trip? Do you think that will be any talks about a new Abrahamic Accord between Israel and Saudi Arabia?
But there, that has been um, being discussed to some degree for a number of years now, and there was a tremendous amount of motivation before October the 7th. But unfortunately, those horrific atrocities carried out by Hamas were in part carried out in order to derail these normalization attempts that would have really changed the hegemonic structure of the Middle East, and that's why the Islamic Republic and its proxy forces launched those attacks. So I hope that we can continue to return to a path of normalization, peace building.
Mhm.
But it's going to require serious discussions, concessions, and it's not going to be an overnight process. But that upcoming visit is certainly encouraging, and we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. My last question, Jonathan, is about UAE. Now, we can see how the pro Muslim Brotherhood in Sudan attacking UAE role in Sudan. They have investment there. They are not interfering in the war. The UAE has positioned itself as the leading Arab state opposing political Islam, while other countries like Qatar and Turkey continue to support the Muslim Brotherhood's ideological networks. So, how do you evaluate the role of this country as a model to combat extremism?
I think for a number of years now, the UAE has demonstrated a very positive kind of leadership in the region. It was one of the earliest, adopters of peace building with Israel, joining the Abraham Accords,
Mhm.
and also while also, espousing certain ideals, religious, way of government, but also disavowing conflict and terrorism and taking that very seriously. So, um, we appreciate and we value that relationship, and we hope that that serves as a model to other nations in the region looking to follow suit and looking to also enjoy the kind of prosperity that the UAE has enjoyed. It's no coincidence why they are successful, why they're growing in stature. It's because of the right combination that they've struck of, you know, rule a rule of government that is serious, but that also has no tolerance for terrorism and extremism.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, Jonathan Harounoff, for your sharing your thoughts, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Maria. Great to be with you again.
Thank you.